Hey guys, how's it going? Spidey here for another video, and today we're finally doing a video on my new, to me, 2006 Infiniti M35. So I know y'all have seen it in the background when I'm talking in my other videos, and I've mentioned it before. So today I figured I would actually talk about it. Talk about why I got it, things I absolutely love about it, what's available for the platform, as well as any future plans I might have for the car. So without further bullshit, let's get into it. So like I said, this is a 2006 Infiniti M35. It came with the VQ35DE or the VK45DE. With the VQ, it weighed in at 2,800 pounds and made 280 horsepower with a 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. Now with the VK45DE, it was 335 horsepower with a 5.76 0 to 60, weighing in at 3,900 pounds. So this is basically Infiniti's BMW 5 Series with the G35 of this time frame being like the 3 Series. So if you've ever been in a G35 from this time frame, then you could tell that the interior is much different than in a G35. Ignore my muffler delete. So it has the orange gauges from this time span of Nissan Infiniti. It has a different infotainment system. It keeps the clock, which I think the clocks are very classy in these cars. 5-speed automatic transmission, a vape holder, and a cell phone holder because Infiniti knows its audience. Has a removable cup holder slot. And one of my favorite features of this car being the armrests. I use this feature quite frankly every single day. That's where I hold my wallet, please don't rob me. And that's where I hold all my vape shit, please don't haze me or roast me. In the glove box here, you have a pretty sizable glove box with the Bluetooth unit and the switch that could turn the trunk into a safe. So my model is the base model, and it had the wood trim that you can see here and on the door, and I was in the process of converting it into the aluminum trim that the sport models and higher models seem to have. Also has a spot for your sunglasses as well as a shade. Granted, I never need to use that because I have a window tint on the sides and on the windshield, but it's still pretty nice to have. Sunroof that I could tell was about to go out. So now going to the back seat area. So my car is running, so the driver's seat is where I would have it under all driving circumstances. Sitting behind myself, I am 5'8", and I have a great bit of legroom for myself. The door card is very cushy, the leather is very soft and supple. Lots of room back here. This armrest folds down, and since mine's a base model, nothing is in this part. But if this had the higher premium packages in it, this would have controls and whatnot for the built-in headrests that would be in the, for the built-in TVs that would be in the headrest right here. Same thing goes for this little guy right here. There would be RCA inputs and whatnot if this were a higher trim model. Something else to note in here is while the seats do not fold down, you do have a little cubby hole here. That way when you're driving you have quick access to your oil right here because it's a VQ35DE and you always need to have extra oil on hand. I already experienced my VQ35DE initiation with this car as soon as I got it. I had to put 3 quarts of oil in it ASAP. So if you can excuse everything that I have in my trunk, then you'll be able to see that there is a lot of space in this trunk. So I'm not sure as to how exactly I can convey the amount of trunk space I have on camera, but it's a pretty good amount. So like I said, this has the VQ35DE in it. This is supposed to have plastic cladding on either side of the motor, but I took it off because I think the plastic cladding looks fucking stupid, and I would prefer to see everything in my engine bay. Only reason I still have that engine cover on is because I don't have the really nice Z1 cover that goes on the front of the timing cover. I would love to have that, but money. And the only real... So I'll choose now as the time to talk about why I actually got the car, and then I'll go into other things about it. So basically, y'all probably remember I had a 2008 G35 sedan, and it was white. Basically, I got that car for a stupid good deal. I wanted to make a video on this one too. It was a salvage title car with front end damage, and essentially I fixed it for pretty cheap, to be quite frank, and it had 88,000 miles on it. So I got the car with the intention of keeping it, but then my mom fell in love with the car while I had it, so I told her to let me find another car first, and I would sell her the G35. She's never really had a nice car before that was a good car, so I decided I really wanted to sell my G35 to her. This was my customer's car. So essentially, one of my customers pulled up into the service drive and had a check engine light on. I scanned it, and the entire time I was scanning it, he was telling me that he thinks it might be time to sell the car. So as he says that, I had a code for the intake timing solenoids, and it was because the car burned oil. Wow, VQ35Ds burn oil, right? So he told me he was looking at selling the car. The body's in great condition, as you've seen. The interior's in great condition. So we agreed on a price, and I bought it off of him. So at first when I bought it, I just saw it as a clean car that really didn't need anything. But the more I looked at it, and then the more where I saw people modifying it, I decided this really could be a cool platform to modify. So speaking of modifications, because I know it's probably what everyone's interested in, BC Racing makes coilovers for this car. You can put wheels on it. I know for a fact Stillin makes a catback exhaust for it. It's not even a fucking catback. We have the white pipe that comes off of the cats. It connects to the back of the white pipe, so it's not even a true catback. It's a white pipe back, as stupid as that sounds. Now, Stillin makes a catback for it. Engine makes a cold air intake for this car. And then since it's a VQ, a lot of the G35 and 350Z parts swap right over to this thing. All you gotta do is look at the forums, and you can see that a lot of parts, like the headers and whatnot, swap right over to this car. You can make these cars look really, really good. There's a particular one that caught my eye, actually. There's two particular ones. There's this silver one that's kind of stands out, that looks nice as hell. And then this black one here, it just looks so sexy. I decided I wanted to make my car look like that because it's so sexy and so clean. So, however, I would want to do it with the V8 version. And that brings me into my next point on this car. Well, actually a point that I will talk about later. So this car is a gem, and it's part of why I had to buy him. So with me having worked for Infiniti in the past, it made my search for an Infiniti even easier, because as long as I had the last 8 of the VIN number, I could look it up in my system and I could know whether the car's been maintained or not. This thing had every piece of maintenance you could think of on it. Between spark plugs, oil changes, transmission fluid exchanges, power steering rack replaced, brake caliper replaced, wheel hub replaced, all of the fluids done. I would have been stupid not to buy this car because that's how clean it was, and still is. So it was a good deal. On the note about trying to keep the car clean, I restored the headlights. I added these LED sequential side markers. I did window tint all around, and these AVS window visors, which it turns out that is an OEM part from Infiniti. And that's about it. This is the... And that's how I found out it wasn't working. Sequential side markers. So now getting into the part of the video where I talk about things that I don't necessarily like about this car. So the biggest things that they're kind of stupid, admittedly, but they're my things, right? In terms of things I do not personally like about this car, these blank switches here, those are for your heated and ventilated seats that I do not have. This car is a base model, so it doesn't have the heated and ventilated seats, nor does it have a backup camera with GPS. So granted, the GPS isn't an issue for me. The issue for me is because the backup camera and the GPS are in the same unit, essentially. So if you don't have one, you don't have the other, essentially. Other very minor pet peeve I have. These side mirrors. This is something I just discovered recently. When I put it into reverse, the mirror moves, right? On this car, I put it into reverse, the mirror is stationary. And that drives me absolutely insane because I noticed it. So all of that makes me want the higher end level car, because at least with the backup camera and the heated and cooled seats, having worked for an independent Porsche dealer for 2 months, once you drive a fun car where your butt is also being cooled off the entire time and your lower back is being cooled off, you don't ever want a car that doesn't have it. It is so freaking nice to have, and that's why I'm willing to find another M that does have those features on. Now, to go into what I didn't know would be my biggest complaint about this car is the VQ motor in it. And it's nothing against the motor itself. For once in my life, I can't believe I'm going to say this, the car has too much that I can do to it. Let me explain. So essentially, the reason I bought my Sentras was there wasn't that much I could really do to it. As in, there wasn't a whole lot of mods made specifically for that chassis that I could do to it. And that was why I bought it. But then I started finding out that there were parts from other cars that I could put onto the Sentra to make it quicker. Such as, I could do 350Z injectors on it. And there was a really, really fucking good tuner out there that knew how to make some power out of them. And then they did make turbo kits for it. You could make 330 horsepower off of 8 pounds of boost, for fuck's sake, in that car. There were BC coilovers made for it. There were stainless steel brake lines made for it. The more I started researching into the platform, the more I realized I could do to it. This car, I never saw them messed with. So I thought there wasn't really anything you could do to them. And for the most part, that is very true. However, because this has the VQ motor in it, and then if you look at the freaking catalog the Z1 has for the VQ35DE, there is a lot of stuff I can do with this car. If from the enthusiast wanting to mess with shit perspective, that's great. But from the daily driver perspective of I just want a car that looks nice, sounds nice, is reliable, I don't really want to do that much to it, because I don't want to go off the steep end. Not to mention, I still want a Subaru BRZ for my daily, even though that Corolla XSE is looking really nice right now. And there's still other things I would like to do in life right now. I don't want to have to see all these different things I could do to this car, because I'm going to want to spend the money on them. And I don't have very good self-control in that regard. Which is why I'm looking at getting a M45 with a 4.5 V8. The reason being, you can do an intake on it, and then they make catbacks for it, but I would put a custom catback on it, and you could tune it, and that is just about it. You can't really do anything else to it. People have made headers work on them in the past, but I'm just not willing to put in that kind of money unless someone happens to have a header made for it that I could buy for a good price. My ideal setup for this car would be adjustable suspension, so I could get exactly the kind of fitment I want. A nice catback, nice wheels and tires, a good non-restrictive intake, put a tune on it, and I would be very happy with the car. Then I would keep the paint nice and immaculate, but that's about it. I don't have a whole lot of wants in it. But then I would want the heated, cooled seats and the backup camera and whatnot. But that's really about it for my ideal daily. So I don't want something super extravagant. I just want something that I could actually see myself being happy with for the next 5 years or so. So, in terms of how this car drives, though. So, in terms of how this car drives, if you're coming from a G35 or a Z car, or maybe even a 37, this feels like a boat. Reason being, to compare to the 35 with the HR in it, because that's what I came from, that was about 3,400 pounds if I remember right. This car is around 3,800 pounds, and then you're going to add an extra 100 pounds or so if you get the V8, and then you're going to add even more weight on if you get all the options on it. This car is heavy, and you feel it. So with the DE and the older 35 sedans, the throttle response is still punchy for what it is, and you don't really feel the weight in the corners all that much. Now, you will feel body roll, but you won't feel all the weight. This car, it's almost like trying to steer the Titanic. You better hang the fuck on. Not to say it has bad steering, because the steering feel is still good. I could tell what the car is doing. There's no vagueness or anything. But you definitely need to watch how fast you're going into a corner and what your trajectory is, because it will understeer a lot, and that is something I'm trying to fix on this. Now, in terms of the comfort and whatnot, it's a pretty comfortable ride. It's fairly quiet on the highway. I could whisper to you romantically while we're driving on the highway. Pretty quiet car. The brakes work pretty well also. Granted, I would still upgrade to the Akibonos just because I'm overkill on things. Now, in terms of the actual seating position and whatnot, I feel like I'm sitting in my car, not like I'm on top of it, like I'm inside of it. However, that brings me to one of my big complaints about this car: these seats. I don't know if this is common on all of the M's, or if this is because the guy I bought it from was a bigger guy who had it since 60,000 miles, and it's currently at 206,000 right now, and I bought it for him right before it hit 200,000 miles. Maybe the seats are broken in. I don't know. All I know is after an hour and a half of driving, my ass feels like I'm sitting on fucking bricks, and like I have glass for back support. It's not very comfortable at all. So that could be it's an old car, but it could also be maybe I need to take these seats to an upholstery shop and ask them to please put some padding inside of it. So, other than that, this car is a nice place to be. So, for every option that this particular car has, I have the dual climate control, I have the defrosters for the side windows, I have the power mirrors, and I have the automatic tinting review mirror. However, the other features available for this car that I would like to have, the one I was surprised by is the AFS headlights, which is the automatic adapting headlights. Basically, when you turn the wheel, the headlights turn with it. And at first it seems like a gimmick, but then once you're on some back roads, you're getting into a highway off-ramp at night, and you can actually see exactly where you're going to go because the light beam is pointing directly that way. It's very, very nice, and I would like to have that feature back. And then my before mentioned heated and cooled seats and the backup camera. Higher trim levels of this car also came with lane departure warning, and they came with forward collision warning as well, and adaptive cruise control. I liked having the adaptive cruise control because it is fucking great for city traffic. Then the premium version of this car had power reclining and heated rear seats. I would never use that feature, but it's just a cool feature in my opinion. So that's mostly it for options on this car. The sport model, it never came with sport brakes. It came with sport wheels and a stiffer suspension, quote unquote, but that's about it. Nothing spectacular whatsoever. They also came with blacked out headlight housing, so there's that too. The blacked out housing look better in my opinion. My ideal year and package for this car would be the 2009 M45S, because where the taillight sits in conjunction to where the trunk lid is, it's not a bad design, but on the newer model it just looks sleeker. It's less bulky, it's less bulbous per se. On the newer model it looks better. Now on the newer models, I actually like my front bumper for the most part, but on the newer models it is sleeker looking, and I actually like it has this chrome cladding on the sides, whereas mine is body colored on this car, and then I don't have any cladding on the rear bumper. It might look cheesy to you guys, but I actually love how it looks on the sides and on the rear bumper. That also comes with the 7AT on the VQ35HR on the newer M35s. The V8 unfortunately still has the 5AT, so that's a boo-hoo for me anyways. It also has the white interior lighting, and I personally think the white light looks better. Tongue twister. But that's just me. So you can see the M to the left is my car and the M to the right is a 2009 model. I freaking love the chrome cladding on the rear bumper underneath the headlights on the car to the right. And you can also see that the taillights on the right one are sleeker and they don't contact the spoiler the way my car would on the left. The taillights are physically slimmer, and I love how that looks. So if you're asking yourself, should you get one of these cars? My question is absolutely. I would just really, really think about what you want beforehand and look at all the model years beforehand before you got one. If you want something that's relatively cheap to find parts for, with parts readily available, I would get a fully loaded 2005 to 2008, I believe it is, with the VQ35DE in it, just because of how abundant DE parts are for this. If you don't really care, then I would get the newer model, just because it's a little bit more updated. So if you guys have any specific questions about this car that I could answer, any comments whatsoever, let me know. So until then, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.